The history of Tamriel is rich and detailed. Chroniclers and cartographers like the ones in the Imperial Geographic Society have filled the history books with facts, making scrupulous efforts to outline and preserve historical accounts. And before these scholars, word of mouth passed down from generation to generation, which shone a light on simpler times when tribal needs and elves learned the lay of the land. But while discussions of the realm of Mundus or the planet of Nirn often seem synonymous with simply discussing Tamriel, Lorkhan's mortal plane is far larger than Tamriel's inhabitants seem to recall. We have the land of Atmora to the distant north, the exotic landmass named Yakuta to the west, and the far-off land of Aldmeris in the south. But if we look east from the shores of Morrowind and Argonia, out over the endless Padomaic Ocean, there exists a continent we know scarce little about, and that continent is called Akavir. Many races of modern Tamriel can trace their lineage back to the northern, western, and southern continents, and this acts to dispel some of the obscurity surrounding the locations. But in modern times, what remnants we have of Akaviri culture is seldom seen, except by the most meticulous of adventurers. Maybe the shroud of mystery encompassing Akavir is just a convenient means for the gods to avoid unnecessary world building, or maybe the Dragonland is far more fascinating and terrifying than we Tamrielites can imagine. The one race hailing from Akavir that the Empire's historians would be very familiar with is called the Tsaesci, and their culture had a lasting impact on the governance of the Imperial Legion and Tamrielic culture as a whole, starting as early as the First Era. Hey guys, it's Scott here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. In this video, we're going to learn all there is to know about the Tsaesci, the Akaviri serpent folk. Late in the First Era, around the year 2700 of the First Era, the Tsaesci set sail from Akavir, their fleet headed westward to invade Tamriel. Whether something provoked the serpent race to sail west, or whether it was a coincidence is unclear, but during this time the Cyrodiilic Empire was at an embryonic state relative to modern standards. At this time, the Imperial Province was divided, as there was also the Colovian Empire with its own sovereignty. The Tsaesci landed in Skyrim and conquered the province, defeating the Nords and dragons on their own turf. Accounts on what these snake men looked like are often contradictory or cryptic, which seems wholly uncharacteristic of Tamrielic chroniclers. But from what descriptions we do have, the Nords were likely terrified of the alien conquerors. Some sources stated that the Tsaesci looked a lot like humans, only distinguishable by their bizarre oriental fashion, arms, and armor. Other accounts are very different, describing them as more serpent than man, calling them vampiric cannibals with fangs and forked tongues. The book Mysterious Akavir gives this depiction of the Tsaesci. They are tall, beautiful if frightening, covered in golden scales, and immortal. They supposedly had the upper body of a man with the lower body of a snake. These accounts are often disputed by scholars, and one would think that the Tsaesci had to have humanoid proportions due to the Akaviri armors kept by many collectors. On the other hand, this could also be explained by the fact that the Blades, an organization which we'll talk about in great detail shortly, had many Tamrielic members, and that could explain the Tsaesci style of armor fit for human wear. In the Third Era, Emperor Uriel Septim V would subsequently launch his own invasion of Akavir, and reports brought back by Imperial chroniclers describe the Tsaesci as mounted men, giving no credence to the claim that they were in fact literal serpents. But this conquest was an utter failure, and the Imperial legions were routed quickly. Only a small portion of the original number made it back to Tamriel, and the Emperor was among the fallen. So once again, there is not much information to support any claims. Anyways, back in the First Era, once the Tsaesci took control over Skyrim, they worked their way south, establishing a stronghold in the Pale Pass. The impending threat was the catalyst for the unification of the Imperial Empires into one consolidated empire. The man at the helm of this new superpower was Reman Cyrodiil. Reman had always been bound for brilliance. Legends hold that the mighty human hero Pelennor Whitestrake had screamed Reman Cyrodiil's name 1,000 years prior to the man's birth. It is believed that Reman's father was named King Hrol, and his mother was the spirit of the slave Empress Alesia. Tales tell that the infant Reman was found at Sankator atop a golden hill, and adorning his head was the Amulet of Kings. In order to stop the ominous foreign invaders from reaching mainland Cyrodiil, Riemann led his armies into the Dural Mountains. Upon witnessing Riemann ride through the pass, the Tsaesci surrendered. After hearing his voice, the formidable Tsaesci force fell to their knees in unison and swore their lives to him, proclaiming him Dragonborn. One could make the argument that the Akaviri invaders were so willing to concede defeat because a large avalanche had trapped the Akaviri commanders within their Pale Pass fort, leaving the main force isolated within the pass and without leadership. But the long-term commitment to Riemann that followed, as well as the fact that the Tsaesci began their invasion in Skyrim, and because they hail from the Dragonland, suggests something else entirely. The Tsaesci were seeking the fabled Dragonborn. The Tsaesci weaponry and battle prowess impressed Riemann, and he gladly accepted their fealty. What came next was a long and fruitful relationship, an essential partnership between Imperial and Tsaesci that would allow the Riemann dynasty to prosper. Back across the ocean in Akavir, the Tsaesci had an order of elite warriors named the Dragon Guard. It was this order's duty to protect the rulers of their lands, and also to hunt dragons plaguing their dominion. They wielded their daikatana blades and wore dragon-scale armor, and their architecture was unique relative to Tamrielic styles. While he never took the title of Emperor, Riemann ruled the Cyrodiilic Empire after defeating the Akaviri invaders, and during this time, the Dragon Guard served as his personal guard. The formation of Cyrodiil as it is known today is credited to Riemann, who incorporated aspects of High Rock, Colovia, the Nibene region, and the sophisticated if not strange culture of the defeated Akaviri into a common whole. He developed the process used to initiate emperors with the Amulet of Kings. Around this time, Riemann Cyrodiil II granted permission for the Tsaesci to construct Alduin's Wall in their northern stronghold of Skyhaven Temple. Once the dragons were extinct from Tamriel, the Dragon Guard had only one function left: to defend the Dragonborn and his lineage. This is partially what led to the Dragon Guard's transformation into the modern Blades. Just over 200 years after the Riemann dynasty came into being, it was ended when the Morag Tong assassinated Emperor Riemann Cyrodiil III. This was a pivotal event for the Dragon Guard and caused their total disbandment. These Tsaesci warriors split into various splinter factions. Some became simple mercenaries, while others became the Dragon Knights. Inspired by the Dragon Guard, it was the duty of the Dragon Knights to ensure that Tsaesci culture and martial tradition lived on throughout the Second Era after the end of the Riemann dynasty. The remaining Tsaesci in Cyrodiil were the famous Akaviri potentates and their unofficial covert force, which would be a precursor to the Blades. The potentates are significant because potentate was the title given to the emperor's chief advisor during the reign of the Riemann dynasty, but after the Riemanns were gone, the Akaviri potentates remained, and they took it upon themselves to rule the empire in the Riemann dynasty's stead. The first of these potentates, Versailles Shea, was rumored to have orchestrated the assassination of Riemann III and his heir. Either way, it was he who took the liberty of declaring the end of the First Era and the commencement of the Second. It was actually this potentate who is credited with the creation of the Fighters Guild. At the time it was called the Scyphim, which is soldiers in the Tsaesci tongue. But since then, it has opened its doors to all races and has become known as the inclusively titled Fighters Guild. Astonishingly, the Tsaesci potentates held control of the empire all the way until the 430th year of the Second Era. It's mind-boggling how such an important race in Tamrielic history can still, to this day, be shrouded in so much mystery. A state of unrest gripped Cyrodiil for the next 424 years. During these years, the Tsaesci laid low, awaiting the return of the Dragonborn. So when Tiber Septim ended the unrest and founded the Septim Empire, the Dragon Guard were anxious to come out of the woodwork. Under Septim, the order officially became known as the Blades. All of the Tsaesci customs and culture remained, only now they acted as more than just bodyguards. They were the Imperial Intelligence Service and would carry out all manner of tasks for the Empire, including espionage and foreign affairs, anything that would advance the aims of the Empire. The Blades played a crucial part in Tiber Septim's use of the Numidium, entrusted with recovering the lost pieces. They also played a part in investigating King Lysandus of Daggerfall's death, as well as the Nerevarine prophecy, and they were essential in helping the champion of Cyrodiil protect Martin Septim, allowing him to light the dragonfires and banish Mehrunes Dagon back to Oblivion. Each of these events are depicted on Alduin's Wall. This one construction with the ancient Tsaesci temple displays all of their influence on Tamriel. With Martin Septim's death heralding the end of the Septim dynasty and the new Mede dynasty taking its place, the Blades never hit quite the same levels of prominence. Titus Mede was no dragonborn after all, so their ancient drive to defend the Emperor was not so strong here. At the commencement of the Great War, an ambassador for the Aldmeri Dominion dropped the severed head of every Blades agent in Somerset and Valenwood on the doorstep of the Imperial City, and when the White Gold Concordat was signed, the Blades were officially disbanded. It is said that in the modern day, the Blades were reformed in secret and led by the last Dragonborn, where they defeated the World-Eater once and for all. But the fate of the Blades lies in the balance, what with them being outlawed by the Dominion continent-wide. Remnants of Tsaesci influence are scattered across Tamriel, and the impact of the Serpent Folk resonates throughout Tamriel to this day. So next time you read the history of the great Cyrodiilic empires, you may want to spare a thought for this mysterious, distant race of snake men, for without their influence, Tamriel would be a very different place. And that concludes the full story of the Tsaesci serpent race. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I've been Scott, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again next time.